Hi, my name is Abby, and I had my classroom library on the Magic Treehouse book series. I chose 8 of the books in the series to talk about the diversity and inclusion that they hold within each story. So I'm going to go through each of the books that I chose. The first one is Mummies in the Morning. This one is about Jack and Annie, who are the main characters, and they help a ghost of an Egyptian queen in the past pass through to the afterlife. And then the second one is Night of the Ninjas. This one, they travel to help a ninja and learn about the culture of that. My third one is Afternoon on the Amazon. Again, it's a very similar theme. They all follow a similar storyline, just within different environments and cultures. The next one I have is Day of the Dragon King. This one was really good too. And then the next one I have is Viking Ships at Sunrise, as well as Hour of the Olympics and Tigers at Twilight. And then Dingoes at Dinner Time. So I was able to borrow all of these from the public library that I have in my hometown, in which I did over spring or Thanksgiving break. And these are all by the same author, Mary Pope Osborne, as well as published by the same publisher. So the whole basis of these books is they follow the same 2 brothers and sisters whose names are Jack and Annie, and these 2 adventurous siblings teleport almost to different culturally diverse cities, events, and just historical times in our timeline. I would say these books are targeted towards a 3rd to 5th grade audience. At least that's when I read them. And they're pretty easy reads. So if I were to put them in a classroom, I would be teaching some throughout that grade level. So one of the main reasons why I chose these 8 books is because for the grade level that I'm teaching, it is a really easy and intriguing way to introduce different cultures and global history, including some events that have actually happened. Although all of these books are historical fiction, they are obviously based on true customs and values within these different cultures. So as a 3rd grader that would read this, they might read it and think, oh, this is pretty cool. And then later, maybe they would research more on their own, or they'd ask questions, and really just helping them become more well-rounded people. So to dive in a little bit to the books, some things that I thought were important or key factors of the diversity and inclusion in these would be, in the first one that I talked about, Mummies in the Mansion, they talk about a lot about hieroglyphs, which was like obviously a way that the Egyptians were able to write and communicate their stories, which might be very different from the students that are reading these books in the classrooms. Like they might be learning how to write in the ABCs. So getting to see that contrast of different cultures is really important for young students to learn. Another example that I found is Afternoon on the Amazon. Jack and Annie travel to the rainforest, and they're really just able to see the importance that the vast span of wildlife and like creatures and the biodiversity that the rainforest brings, and how important that is to the earth. It shows a lot of examples of how people are able to work with nature to bring their culture to life, which again might be very different from the environment that these students are reading the books in, whether they're in a city or a suburb. Another example that I chose was from Hour of the Olympics, which is based in Greece. It talks a lot about gender roles and the cultural norms. Obviously, talking about the Olympics, which is sports, that one of the main bases of it was Annie, the girl of the two siblings, wanted to join the Olympics, but she couldn't because she was a girl. And this is a very important turning point in history that someone who's reading these books now might not know about, that it wasn't always boys and girls getting to compete in sports. It used to be just boys. So this is a good example of fairness throughout history and talking about injustice in a more surface level area. Talking about some of the things that are not included in these books is also an important thing to mention. These books aren't like the most perfect example of history because they are a children's book that is more meant to just get them intrigued and pulled into the topic, not give them the exact facts, dates, and timeline of these cultures and events, kind of just the peak of the mountain. So with that, some of the standards and values are more simplified. In some of the books, they might use like easier terminology and not go fully in depth on what this religious custom is. They might just describe the gist of it. So that is, it's not a history book. These aren't history books. They're a historical fiction book. But there are a lot of strengths in these books that I chose. Some of them being that all the kids are able to see all these different environments, and there aren't just 8 books. There's many different books that Mary Osborne has wrote in the same theme and storyline. It covers a vast variety of different things, such as natural disasters, cultural movements, different environments, and more. They're just really good discussion starters for bringing awareness to things that might not happen in the hometown of the readers and the audience. And this is something that is very needed for the future of our world to become more well-rounded and open-minded.